Wendi. Of course she did. She did like 5 and she was I already did.
His family asking to be on Zoom once again.
I do not know the answer to that, Judge. I'm sorry. Let me confer. I think we should probably assume so.
Morning, everyone. You can be seated. You can stand at the lectern if you wish.
For the record, Laurel Niles on behalf of state witness Charlie Adelson.
All other counsel of record can make their appearances at this point.
Georgia Kappelman for the state.
Alex Morris on behalf of Mrs. Adelson.
Dan Rashbaum on behalf of Mrs. Adelson.
So, how was everyone's evening last night?
Got a lot of sleep, Your Honor. How about you?
Slept like a baby. Let's start with the notice of invoking rights and non-waiver of conflict of interest by Mr. Adelson. Do you have anything to argue beyond what's in the pleading?
Your Honor, I'm not here to advocate for a position for the court to do something in this case. The only thing I intend to do with my filing is to invoke Mr. Adelson's rights to put the parties in the court on notice that he does intend to invoke his rights.
Right. Ms. Kappelman, does the state have a position that it wishes to raise concerning the notice or the filing?
My only position, Judge, is that this issue has been waived. Your Honor did an inquiry, which was thorough, covered the issue, and
As to Mrs. Adelson,
yes, sir.
concerning Charlie Adelson, I believe, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the only way Mr. Rauschbaum's representation could occur is if both ends of the conflict were waiving. I don't believe Mr. Adelson ever took an affirmative position one way or another.
My understanding was he did, but I guess that position is changing. So I don't know. I have to defer to Your Honor on that.
Does the state intend to call Charles Adelson as a part of its case in chief?
No, he would be a rebuttal witness at this point. Now, that could also change too. But as of this moment, he is a rebuttal witness.
Ms. Niles, is there a reason that your client waited until yesterday to assert his invocation of this right and non-waiver?
Your Honor, I think the critical question is when the conflict arose. So
Oh, the conflict has been there. The conflict is clear on its
Yes.
face. It's clear as my nose. Is there a reason your client did not assert this until yesterday?
Your Honor, my understanding is that my client has not waived at any point. And so asserting it yesterday was merely putting the parties on notice of that non-waiver. I mean, the fact that he's listed in discovery as a Category A witness does not mean that the state was going to call him as a witness at trial. I think the conflict arose when my office received a subpoena for his trial testimony, which was last week on September 11th, and then he was transported to the jail on September 13th. Mr. Efferman was able to meet with him at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday the 14th. And then at that point, without revealing any confidential communications with our client, we became aware that all the parties needed to be on notice that there was no waiver and that he does intend to invoke his rights. And so our notice was filed the next business day, Monday morning. It was later in the morning, but we were trying to get it done. We were a non-party, so we were having some trouble figuring out how to get it filed, but we drafted it and alerted the parties and the court as soon as we knew that this was an imminent issue, that his rights were imminently potentially going to be violated. Now, I don't think, excuse me, I don't believe they would be violated until he takes the witness stand. And at that point, either his former counsel attempts to cross-examine him, or another member of the defense team attempts to cross-examine him, or they advance an interest that is materially adverse to his interest. So I think the potential for conflict was always there, but the conflict arose. It's going to arise on the witness stand. It has not quite yet arisen, but the potential for conflict.
It's simmering, not boiling.
Yes, Your Honor, it's burgeoning.
Mr. Morris.
Yes, sir. Judge, when I came into the case, at the inception of the case, obviously I was aware of the fact that Mr. Rashbaum represented Mr. Adelson. I was aware of the conflict, whether it's arisen or not. My view of it is that it's always been there and been present. As a result of that, I have been walled off from everything as it relates to any discovery from that prior case, any notes. I've not had any conversations with Mr. Rashbaum about Mr. Adelson's evidence or property. The first instance that I met Mr. Adelson was this past weekend on Saturday with Mr. Ufferman. And in fact, Mr. Adelson queried whether or not I had seen his phone. I said no. But we planned for this exact circumstance. And
From Leslie, is it odd Alex met with Charlie and Charlie asked him if he had seen his phone? Alex must go. What do you make of this, Tim?
It's odd that Alex met with Charlie
I don't remember this. Do you? I
and
don't.
Charlie asked him if he had seen his phone. You know, I remember that coming up, but I wasn't sure the context. And it kind of went over my head because I didn't know how it was relevant. And I still don't.
Well, we'll have to figure that one out because I
Members of the jury, they have Charlie's iCloud account. They have all of his text messages. They have all of the information from his phone. Mind you, he's never been arrested, but they have his entire iCloud account. Let's see if the state's attorney's office is going to show you all of the text messages between these supposed co-conspirators. Because I guarantee you, if there is something in there that is evidence of this homicide, they'll show it to you. But if they don't, ask yourselves why.
And the idea was that I was going to conduct any cross-examination if Mr. Adelson were to testify. Mr. Ufferman's motion argues to impute the conflict absent a showing, a good faith showing of an ethical law. I think that we've done that, but of course, as I mentioned in my response, we planned in the alternative if we're forced in that direction of securing alternate counsel.
When was the third party counsel retained?
Candidly, there's been no retention in terms of money from Mrs. Adelson to that lawyer. That's prepared to happen. We wanted to see Your Honor's ruling. But the answer is I spoke with the attorney yesterday to confirm, just as I mentioned in the response, availability and absence of conflict for that lawyer.
Law enforcement meets with Markel's ex-wife, Wendi Adelson, whereby they learn that she has been embroiled in a very contentious divorce and continued litigation with Mr. Markel regarding the enforcement of the divorce settlement agreement and specifically the custody of their two boys. Pleadings from the divorce indicate that Wendi Adelson had made efforts to relocate to South Florida. She'd actually moved to South Florida with the kids, and a court ordered her on June 20th, 2013, that she had to come back to Tallahassee. She couldn't leave with Mr. Markel's children. The name of Charlie Adelson. Charlie Adelson had a sister in Tallahassee, Wendi Adelson, and Wendi Adelson had a problem, and her problem was named Dan Markel. And the solution to that problem was Magbanoa, Rivera, and Garcia. Garcia hopping back into the Prius, Rivera backs out of the driveway, and they head back to Miami. I mentioned earlier that both men had their phones off, and that once they turn their phones back on, the very first call that either of them make after the homicide is Mr. Garcia to Catherine Magbanua. And what does he say? He says, "The job is done." And what does she reply? She says, "I know." So almost 2 years after the murder, law enforcement conducts an undercover operation. They got court authorization to go up on a wire, what's called a wire, on Catherine Magbanua's phone and also Charlie Adelson's phone, which means they could listen in real time to what was being said on these phones. That's, despite some popular belief, not something the government normally can do without special authorization. In this case, that authorization was put in place, and law enforcement was prepared to listen to both Catherine Magbanua's calls and Charlie Adelson's calls.
And what's more important, members of the jury, one of the interesting things that Luis Rivera said, and it's going to be a very important and pivotal part of this case. In one of his statements, he mentions that Wendi Adelson is involved. He says that Sigfredo told him the lady wants her kids back. Wendi, he even mentions her name, Wendi, because Luis knows how badly they want the Adelsons. So he's thinking, let me throw out Wendy's name too, because maybe I can get 10 years instead of 19, because that's how bad they want the Adelsons. He knows. And he proceeds to tell them, trying to give more details, add some, credibility to his story, that he goes so far to say that the day before the homicide, and they're casing his house, that they're driving down Trescott, and a woman is walking down the street with her 2 boys. He knows this from the discovery. Walking down the street with her 2 boys, and that Sigfredo looks at him and goes, "Hey, that's Wendi. That's Wendi, the girl that wants our kids. She's making sure that we are up here and doing the job." You'd think that would be enough evidence, right? To put handcuffs on Wendi Adelson and bring her to this courtroom so she can answer questions. But no, they know that he's not telling the truth, because they have records that show that both boys were at the daycare center the day before, and that Wendy's house is 5 miles away from Dan Markel. They're gonna...
What possible motive would I have to prosecute an innocent person? In what universe would that assist me in getting the Adelsons? Someone requesting a trial does not mean they're innocent. Every criminal defendant has a right to a trial. She didn't flee the country, so she must be innocent. She would never risk not seeing her children. A mother wouldn't or couldn't be capable of doing something like this. Well, who would be capable of doing something like this? So heinous. Yet it happens. We all know it happens all the time. And we talked about it in jury selection. What does a murderer look like? Are they a certain race? Are they a certain creed? Are they a certain sex? No, they come from all walks of life, in every shape and size. Don't excuse her conduct because of sympathy. It is unfortunate. It is sad. This is sad for everybody involved. But this is about those defendants' choices that are sitting across the room from you. Defense showed you a picture of the girls on the beach with a credit card in it. I can't see the name on that credit card. I don't understand how that means that she bought drinks that day. And I don't understand what in the heck that has to do with the murder. How did I...
And it's so sad, members of the jury, because in this case, what we have here is Charlie Adelson getting what he wanted, Sigfredo Garcia getting what he wanted, and more importantly, Wendi Adelson got what she wanted. Less than 4 days after he was murdered, she packed up her stuff and left Tallahassee. You're not going to hear any evidence that Charles Adelson made any attempt to go to the funeral of his former brother-in-law. He stayed in Miami and went to the gym. You are not going to see any communications on his iCloud talking about how awful this is. None of that. That is going to scream to you the person who Charles Adelson is. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be lots of phone records, lots of photographs, because this investigation spanned years before any arrests were made. well, before any, well, since 3 arrests were made. Because if you'll see, in 2016, Garcia and Rivera were arrested. In 2016, Miss McDaniel was arrested. Sure you're all wondering what's going on with the Adelsons, right? Donna, she's probably at home watching TV, probably watching this trial. Charles Adelson, arrested a month ago. A month ago. His lawyer is in here right now, back there, watching, taking notes, preparing for whenever Charlie's going to go to trial. Wendi Adelson, the state is going to give her immunity to come and testify in this case for them. That's what's going on in this courtroom, members of the jury. Wendi Adelson is going to get immunity to testify against Catherine McDaniel. You're going to see her for yourself. Watch her, members of the jury. Because she thinks she's going to be able to put on a fantastic performance. But that's all it's going to be, is a performance. Because what you are going to see is not only does she have a motive to protect her family, including her brother, who is now arrested, but she also has a motive to protect herself.
Is Miss Adelson. Your Honor, as you know, Miss Adelson has been subpoenaed by the state as well as the defense. She, without a state subpoena, would unequivocally invoke her Fifth Amendment rights. We want to make that clear for the record. In light of Your Honor's prior rulings and direction, we wanted to put that on the record. However, with respect to the state subpoena, it automatically confers use and derivative use immunity on her pursuant to Florida Statute 914.04. That use and derivative use immunity would only apply to a state subpoena and not to a defense subpoena. So in light of that, we would ask respectfully that the court quash the defendant's subpoena, since there's no purpose and no appropriate purpose in calling a witness simply to invoke in front of the jury.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Laura. Any questions that are given to Ms. Adelson if she was called with the defense case, is she going to assert her Fifth Amendment rights to any question that's asked at that time?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm assuming any question would have to be relevant and germane to the matters in this case, and as a result, she would invoke as to those questions.
All right. And so I'm just going to assert my previous ruling that I've made, and I did restate it on the record yesterday, is that she'll be required to testify under the state subpoena. The cross-examination will be limited to whatever the state's brings forth on direct. So that's what the cross-examination scope will be limited to. There's no piggybacking or bringing in any other information just because she's under the state subpoena. That's not going to be permissible. And then she's not going to be permitted to be called as a witness. Now that we know that she's just going to assert her Fifth Amendment rights, she won't be called as a witness in the defense case at this time.
Yes, Your Honor. That's
Okay.
exactly our understanding of the law.
All right. Okay. Anything else for the court?
No, sir.
Okay. I'm going to ask that Ms. Adelson then please remain outside the courtroom because she's subject to the rule.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
And Your Honor,
Excuse me, Miss Wendi Adelson, Estrada, whatever your name is, you need to come on up, back up. We're not done with you, and you're not done with your legal fees. Thanks.
Okay, Ms. Adelson, if you come up to the witness stand, please. Before you have a seat, we're going to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Respond to the clerk.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Please have a seat. Ms. Kappelman?
Thank you, Your Honor. Please introduce yourself and spell your name.
My name is Wendi Adelson, Wendiadelson.
Ms. Adelson, where do you currently live?
I currently live in Miami Beach.
And are you here today pursuant to a state subpoena?
Yes, I am.
And do all state subpoenas confer immunity?
I don't know if all state subpoenas confer immunity, but this one does.
Okay, and do you believe that your subpoena is special or different from other state subpoenas?
I don't believe it's special or different, so I suppose they all carry immunity.
All right, and does the immunity conferred upon you by the subpoena mean that you can never be prosecuted associated with this case?
That's right.
That's what you think it means?
That's what I think it means.
Okay. And do you think, isn't it true that it's use and derivative use immunity? Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, but not complete immunity from prosecution. Do you agree with that?
That's different than what you just asked before. So I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
All right, so what I'm trying to allow the jury to understand is what sort of immunity you have. What is your understanding of what it means for you to have immunity pursuant to the state subpoena?
So I have derivative and use immunity. And so in the future, a prosecutor couldn't use what I say here today against me.
Correct. But you could be prosecuted. Just nothing you said here today could be used against you in that prosecution. Do you agree with that?
I suppose so.
Okay. Have you made action is, goes down the line like that. You can't get from the engine to the caboose without going through the middle. And the middle is Catherine Magbanua. Why did she pay for Garcia's lawyer? Not because the lawyer did anything wrong. I'm not throwing shade at him. She paid for another co-conspirator's attorney. That's relevant for your consideration and to whether or not this is a conspiracy. They're probably paranoid. And they see a woman and a couple kids on the sidewalk. Garcia says to Rivera, "Oh, that's her. That's the lady." And what Rivera said is that when Katie called to tell them, "Y'all got to get this done tomorrow," that they said, "We saw Wendi," or "We saw the lady with the kids." So that was my memory of the evidence. You guys rely on your own. Well, I have no reason to doubt that they saw somebody on the sidewalk. I cannot tell you that it was Wendi Adelson. I do not have that evidence.
We have a criminal defense attorney at the trial, Sam Zangladesh. I hope I got the name right.
Super close. How you doing?
Sorry about that, Sam.
No
this
worries.
was the last minute of me coming on and not Jesse. So
I get it.
Okay, so what we know for the viewers is Sigfrido Garcia was convicted of first-degree murder of Dan Markel as being the shooter. The prosecution claims this was a murder for hire type situation, and he was facing the death penalty, but he received life in prison. And I'm very grateful that you are joining us here today so we can talk about this case. His co-defendant, and they were on trial at the same time, the trials were not separated, Catherine Magbanua, who is the mother of his children. The jury, I'm sorry, I've got other sounds in my ears. The jury was a hung jury on her. So we are waiting for a retrial on Magbanua's case. She was charged with the same charges and conspiracy to commit. People believe, the prosecution believes, I believe, that the Adelsons had something to do with it, brought Magbanua in, who brought Garcia in. Now, I understand you're his attorney, and so let's get your take on, give me just a general idea. Obviously, you were defending him, saying that he was not guilty of this, he was found guilty. So give me just a brief synopsis of how you feel all of that went.
Sure. So for those that watched the trial, you saw that our legal team, Sigfrido Garcia's legal team, we were sitting right next to Kathy Magbanua and her fantastic legal team. And throughout the course of the trial, from a defense standpoint, they did what was pragmatic and what was extremely effective argument is that they implicated my client to attempt to shield their client. But we didn't do the same thing. And we didn't do the same thing is because our client specifically instructed us not to. And if you think about that, you kind of understand the mindset of Mr. Garcia going into this case. Moments before the trial started, Ms. Kappelman, who's the prosecutor on the case, was extremely open to having Mr. Garcia cooperate, as they have been throughout the pendency of the case. They've been attempting to get him to cooperate. They've been attempting to get Ms. Magbanua to cooperate. to get to the Adelsons, because they're the target at this point. I think they've been the target since the inception. Obviously, Ms. Magbanua, my client, Mr. Rivera, are part of the prosecutorial stream, but they are the top of they're the top of the pyramid. They're who they want to get.
Yes, and I think we have Jesse back.
Thanks for jumping in. Sam, it's good to see you. Okay, so
Good to see
I
you
just
again,
heard your answer, and this actually brings us to the next step. So we were supposed to be covering the retrial of Catherine Magbanua. It was supposed to start last week, obviously pushed off for COVID-19, and we're waiting for the retrial. I want to play our viewers something. This was from the last trial when Katie Magbanua took the stand, and she was asked about her role in this investigation and what she might have in order to help the government against Charlie Adelson. Take a look, and we're going to talk about it on the other side.
There are televisions in jail, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were privy to several news reports on this case, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You were aware that the government's position was that you saw a news report where they said that you hold the key to your own freedom. Remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What did that mean to you?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
That it's up to me to get out of jail.
Okay. And how would you do that?
If I gave up Charlie.
Do you have information that Charlie Adelson was involved in this?
Do I have information? I mean, based on everything that we've been seeing, but I don't have personal information.
Based on everything you've seen, do you think Charlie was involved in this?
Yes.
Do you think Charlie was lying to you?
Yes.
All right, Sam, so you have to tell me, what can we expect now from the retrial? What role is Katie going to play in order for them to get the Adelsons? So if we all believe, if the idea is that the Adelsons were behind this, is she going to take a deal before this trial? If she's convicted, do they hope to make a deal with her before sentencing? How is this going to play out?
So they've been offering her a deal from the beginning. 3 years ago when they arrested her, they in essence offered to drop the case against her if she agreed to be a government witness. And she sat in jail for 3 years and, turned down deal after deal after deal. And those were, they were just in essence, help us get to the Adelsons and you get out of jail, but you have to kind of admit your culpability. She rejected all those deals. And so we went to trial and she testified. And so now the defense attorneys for the Adelsons have sworn testimony from Katie Magbanua that says that she wasn't part of this conspiracy. So it discredits her if they want to use her. But I guarantee you this, I think the state attorney's office will absolutely use her, even if she takes the stand and gives the same recitation of the facts and denies having any kind of culpability. If she's found guilty and they offer a deal after Hankinson gives her a life sentence, which he probably will, she's going to want to help herself out.
Well, the Adelsons' names were thrown around throughout the trial, but again, no one has been charged, no one has been arrested. Kathy, let's go to our viewers. I'm sure they have a bunch of questions for some right now about this case that captured everyone's attention.
They do. And just a reminder, we are taking your questions live today during the show. Okay, question. Wendi perjured herself mercilessly on the stand about things both trivial, and this viewer puts in parentheses, so trivial, exclamation point, and big. Which of these lies do you think will end up being most consequential?
Well, you don't really give me a list of lies, but I will tell you this. Wendi Adelson came in and she played kind of the ditzy blonde to a T. Extremely. And let me tell you, as I sat there and I watched her play this I don't remember, I don't know role, it was in essence an Academy Award performance. She did an excellent job of deflecting the questions and not really kind of marrying herself to answers. But Ms. Kappelman, didn't follow up. She asked the questions she wanted to ask and got the responses that she was expecting to get. What do I think the biggest lie was? That she wasn't involved or that she didn't know.
Well, that's the thing. We're trying to figure out exactly who in the Adelson family might have known something. Clearly, the conversation was a lot about Charlie. But talking about testimony, I want to go back to your client, Sam. Is there any idea, any preview you can give us of what his role, Secretary Garcia's role, going to be in the upcoming Catherine Magbanua trial? Will he testify in any way?
At this point, Sigfredo's case is under appeal. I'm not an appellate lawyer, so he has new counsel for his appeal. I don't think the government's going to call him as a witness. They've offered him deal after deal after deal, and he rejected all these deals at the inception because it was going to hurt his wife, Ms. Magbanua. So the chances of him doing a complete 180, in essence, to help himself when he's kind of thrown himself on a grenade in this case for Ms. Magbanua, I don't think that he's going to testify on behalf of the government. And I don't think he's a good witness for Ms. Magbanua. So I don't see him having any kind of role other than the government presenting the evidence that they have from a prosecutorial standpoint.
And talking about his appeal, he said that he is going to fight this with every breath he has. He actually said that in a letter that he wrote to Katie Magbanua apparently before the sentencing. Kathy, I know we're running out of time on this subject, so let's see if we can get another question in.
Yeah, so Sam, after the conviction, after Garcia's conviction, you held a press conference, and our viewer says, during that press conference, you said those three should be shaking in their boots now. Most people believe that you were speaking about Donna, Charlie, and Wendi. Is that who you had in mind?
Correct. I mean, listen, let me tell you, I think that there's a good possibility that there was a group of detectives outside all of their homes waiting for the verdict to come in. And if it would have been two guilties, they would have made the arrests. That's what I think. And let's say a little birdie told me something to that effect. So I think that they're still hot targets. I think that, it's gotten to the point that I guarantee you that the law enforcement officers that are tracking them 24 hours a day don't even pretend to hide anymore. They just see them and wave.
I want to break down in this case, and we're also going to have you back on when this retrial happens, because it's really such an eerie and sad case from a lot of different levels. Tom Zanganek, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate you taking the time.
But you just can't talk about the case without talking about all of them. It's the Adelsons that had a motive to get this murder done so that Wendi could move. You will not be asked to decide about them, but the evidence is clear that the thing was ultimately done for Wendi. Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera were told that it was for Wendi. They believed they were doing it for Wendi. Possibly because that's true. I mean, ultimately it was for Wendi, but also possibly because the person that hired them, this defendant, was walling Charlie off from them. Walling Sigfredo off from knowing that the money was coming from Charlie, the boyfriend, the dentist.
That's why I asked the court to appoint the public defender's office for purposes of appeal, because she's indigent for costs. So I'm gonna reach out to Jessica Yeri, who is a public defender here. She's fantastic, and we will work as closely with them as possible on the appeal, because no one knows this case better than us. So, but I have to say that it's been a pleasure with everybody, because I feel like you're all family now. It's been 6 years, so. Yeah, I appreciate everybody being so great with us.
You're saying that she does plan to appeal?
Well, our hope of what the result of an appeal will be, because the harder than getting acquittal is overturning a jury verdict. But of course, that's really her last and only option at this point.
The other option is saying more, right?
That is potentially an option, and so.
Is cooperating still?
Pardon me?
The other option is cooperating still?
That's up to the state, because the ball's in their court.
Did she try? Did she try to talk to the state and?
Since the verdict?
Since the verdict.
She has not been in a very good state of mind.
Yeah.
Since even during and after the trial. So I'm hoping now that since this is over, we can.
You said in your statement that she really hopes that everyone involved will.
Yes.
So could part of that be, even if the court doesn't want to hear it, couldn't she still tell the world what she knows?
Well, I don't think the court is the audience at this point. It would be the prosecution.
Right. But if they reject.
And remember too, she is not the only one that has information. There's one person still who has never spoken that probably has the most compelling information out of everybody else. So the hope is maybe
they should have a three-way call with each other about it.
Thank you, right?
They haven't.
No, they haven't. Well, no, they only had that one three-way call in the 6 years that the state obtained, and it just happened by happenstance that she called his mom and he called his mom at the same time. And you guys have that was all in discovery. That was during the trial. That's the only time they've ever spoken to each other directly. Were the days leading up to the trial on that recording. All the other people that you hear on that recording, there's only one call with Katie, but that's through a three-way.
There are other three-party calls though, according to her record.
According to whose record?
Her jail record. She was cited for third-party phone calls back in
on her recorded phone calls for third-party calls, and I will tell you, it was just me and her on the phone call. So it's weird. I know that there's a voice recognition system on the phone, so if they hear a third party, but remember, the prosecution can pull all thousands of her jail phone calls, and they've been monitoring them.
Can you tell us why Katie was crying before the verdict was read?
I don't know. I mean,
Was she having a bad feeling about it before the verdict, you know?
the moment the door opened and the jurors walked in, we knew.
I see.
Because not one of them would make eye contact with us. And based on my experience, and I get it, those jurors, I mean, they poured their heart and soul into this case. I can tell you that from sitting there every single day and watching how intently each and every one of them paid attention. So regardless of the verdict, I have to say, on a case as intense as this, because I've never seen a case with such a fat pattern like this before, and I have tried almost over 50 jury trials, and there will never be a case that compares to this one. And those jurors, when I say they sat there every single day and took notes and paid attention. So regardless of the verdict, I want to give the jurors, you know, a thank you for just paying attention and, you know, listening. It's a very, very, very difficult, as you all know, because you've all been living, all these faces here, I've been seeing you guys for 6 years. So we all know, though, that this is not the end of it. As you all know from our opening statement, what our true belief is, that this is not, that justice hasn't anywhere near been completely served. So, and I meant that when I said that today in the sentencing, I meant it. So, in the hopes that things can be done, just to make sure, because my heart breaks for the Markel family every single day. And when I found out today that Wendi Adelson is still not allowing, after she said in court, in Katie's trial, you know, I'm trying to get them back together, and as soon as she left the stand, everything ceased.
So, Tanner,
but we will do everything that we can. We're still, I know a lot of people have all these preconceived notions and all these assumptions about who is paying our legal fees and all of that. You can all ask the state attorney. They know where every penny came from and that it had nothing to do with the Adelsons. You know, I don't know how much clearer we can make that. I know that perception is still going on.
What is the amount, approximately?
If you pull up her, you can look, she has to put how much in her motion to be cleared indigent for cost, and you can see how much we charged our retainer for the second trial. I can let you know, I mean, we said it very early on, it was her family. Remember, her mother passed away 6 months after her arrest.
Right.
Her mother worked for decades as a nurse. One thing that people do forget when it comes to Katie, she does get lost in the shuffle all the time. And I understand, because the primary people are the ones who put things into motion. But when she does get lost in the shuffle, people do forget, you know, that she hasn't seen her kids in 6 years, and she did lose her mother, and she does have a family. People think that she is, because she has kids with Sigfredo Garcia, that just means that she is, you know, you lie down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. And I just hope that sometimes people will take a chance to really see the person that she is, because I've come to know her. And I truly, truly, truly mean it when I say that I do wish that justice really, and then all answers to this puzzle will eventually be answered and come to light. And there's still people who haven't said a word. So
people multiple?
Well, I only know of one person who hasn't said a word, who just on my involvement in the case, I know never heard from someone who we all know has direct knowledge.
In your conversations with him leading up to trial, when you were prepping him to be a witness, what happened there? Was he reluctant? Did he?
It wasn't really, and it's so funny because everyone said, oh, you know, you were prepping him. It was more of me trying to get him to testify.
Do you know what he was going to say?
No.
You don't know?
No.
not directly.
Did he say something like, "Don't bring me up to Tallahassee" or something? Like he didn't want to be.
It was more, I can tell you all this, and you're all the media, and from the things that aren't on the surface, and if you look into things that you can't see and are going on, for example, in the prisons, and the fact that this case was on the media, it was being played in the prisons. So we all know that how things work in prison rules. If you cooperate in any way, shape, or form with the government, what happens to you in prison? So that is, I mean, if you get the transcripts of Luis Rivera's latest depo, the one that we took the Friday before, we had asked him about that, and if you get those transcripts, you will see he explains like how things work in prison. If you keep your mouth shut, you're revered as, you know, a god in prison. But if you talk, it's a death sentence. So, but I was trying my best and within my powers. I mean, as the case was coming up, remember also too, we had another witness who had said previously and gave a sworn testimony. You all know him. He's God, what was his name again? He just took his life sentence on the, but he was a witness against Luis Rivera because Luis Rivera had said to him in jail that he lied, and we listed him as a witness. Rayborn, thank you. And then as the case was coming to trial, believe it or not, started calling our office and saying, I will not. I've got my life sentence. I don't care what happens. I'm not getting up on that witness stand.
Yeah, that's Walter Cole Rayburn.
Right, and then so, like even too with Sigfredo, there's only so much that we can do. And I'm not his attorney, so I can't ask him. I would love to ask him, but if I asked him anything, I would become a witness. And I didn't want to risk myself being ejected from the case. So I'm just hoping now that the posture of the things have changed. I don't know if things have changed on his side. I'm saying now that things have closed up for Katie. So I don't know. There's always, I don't know. I can't even begin to tell you how I've always thought the case was going to go one way. This case has had so many curveballs that I still can't wrap my head around.
Do you know if those tapes will be released?
Of
Garcia speaking with Magdano right before trial?
Those weren't sealed.
Oh, so they're out already?
The only ones I requested to be sealed were mine with Sigfredo, because it's considered he's my witness. So
would you release those now that it's done?
I don't want to do anything to jeopardize the upcoming prosecution of Mr. Charlie. If it is something that will help the state, no problem. But I will leave it in their hands. So, but if there is anything, I'm not going to do anything to jeopardize the prosecution of Charles Adelson. Because regardless of the question marks that loom around other members of that family who may know or not know or what they do know, you can all tell from our last trial, we are at 100% agreement that Mr. Adelson needs to be brought to justice.
What was it like seeing him in the courtroom for the first time?
This is the first time I've ever been in a room with him. And so many things I'd love to say and ask. And I'm sure, just so many things of all the lives that he has destroyed. Not only the Markels, his family, his nephews, his son that he had while he was out, and then I will not even begin with Katie and all the people who had no direct affiliation with the players in this case. And it's one thing everyone can agree on is all the children. Dan Markel's boys I hope they get to an age, and they will get there. And the one thing that family will not be able to stop them is access to the internet. And the Markel family has been so great in keeping the memory of Dan Markel alive and in the media. And I hope that one day those boys will take it upon themselves to do the research and find out from the rest of the world who their father really was, and then take the necessary steps to reach out to their grandparents. Because they're so young now, they're still within the shield of their parent. But it is a shame, because I can tell you one thing, the composure that the Markel family has had throughout this entire ordeal, having to sit in that courtroom through 2 trials, and just sit there and listen, and their composure is just fantastic. I don't think I could have done that. And their anguish, I meant what I said in there, continues to this day, because now it's like they started all over again and have to go through the process all over again. And I meant it when I said that Katie's heart breaks for them. It does. I mean, every single day she asks, you know, I can't imagine. And she sees them in court. You can tell on their faces. They're not, as the years go on, it breaks my heart. And even with us as the lawyers, there were times when they'd open the doors for us. They're just so gracious and respectful of the judicial process. So I would also say thank you to them, because emotions can run really high, especially in a situation like this. And I have never seen such composure in such an inflamed case by a victim's family before. That was pretty amazing.
Remember, his case, hold on, his case is still up on appeal.
Yeah, correct.
Okay? So
A very weak appeal. There's
well,
few
I don't
reasons.
know, because since his lawyer, his appellate lawyer, you know, was also the lawyer for one of the snitches,
I do know.
Amy Markel. So I don't understand how he is representing Sigfredo Garcia, and he also represented someone that agreed to snitch.
That I did not know.
Yes, that's a conflict for anyone who wants to know, because that just does not seem right.
Let's take that question head on. Though. You're asking why isn't Sigfredo Garcia coming forward? Okay, now this gets into Luis Rivera. Right now, Luis Rivera is sending letters to the state attorney's office begging for help because his life is at risk. Now, this is a high-ranking Latin king. He gets different privileges than somebody like Sigfredo Garcia, who is not a Latin king. Sigfredo Garcia, I imagine, knows that if you are to testify and tell what the truth is, that King Anthony Hebrew was involved,
All these other kings.
and you are serving life already, that you are going to have a very tough existence, but that it potentially could go beyond just his own life to the life of his children. So these are the type pressures that are involved. But those same pressures right now are applying to Luis Rivera. Luis Rivera has made it known through these letters, I am in harm's way right now. That is influencing every word he has to say. Because if the truth is that what he alluded to, that King Anthony is involved and that others are involved, that opens up a can of worms that is a very dangerous can of worms for him and for his family. So these are some of the reasons why he potentially is not coming forward, but also you have the fact that the case is still open on appeal, fighting a life sentence and wanting to deal with it.
What makes more sense? That they're scared of a dentist and his family, or that they're scared of the Latin kings? Had a conversation with Charlie Adelson.
Let's look at this realistically. The belief is that Sigfredo Garcia walked into a garage and shot Professor Dan Markel in the head.
Right.
It's also clear that he loved Catherine McBanwell more than anything. Isn't it also a correct assumption that that is the same man that would confront the man that's in between him and the woman that he loves? What we know from Luis Rivera and from the other evidence is that Luis Rivera and Sigfredo Garcia were tracking Katie and Charles. We know that Sigfredo Garcia contacted Charles Adelson. There's text messages that came out in the trial. Did Sigfredo contact you? We also know that just 2 weeks prior to the murder, Sigfredo Garcia, in the middle of the road, confronted Catherine McBanwell and Charles Adelson. Now, this is either a situation that these two guys that are fighting over the same girl were involved in a conspiracy together where they're fighting over the same girl, or these two guys came to an agreement. And that agreement was, I will break up with this girl, I will pay you, you commit this murder for me, you get back the woman that you love. And interestingly enough, what happens right after the murder? Charles Adelson breaks up with Catherine McBanwell.
Just to let you know, we have Charlie Adelson's iCloud, okay? It was provided to us from the state that they fought tooth and nail to not present that evidence to the jury, because in those are all of the text messages between Katie and Charlie Adelson. We have all of their text messages between each other on the day of the homicide, where he is at work all day and she's like, hey, what are you doing later? This doesn't sound like a conversation between people who are conspiring. So it's amazing to us that they have all this, but they're trying to keep it from the jury. So we actually have all that evidence there that they actually know about each other. Who's to say also that Sigfredo just introduced Charlie to Luis? Luis is taking everybody for a ride. Everyone. And I'm telling you right now, he knows the answer to what really happened lies with Luis Rivera. And he got the deal of a century to come into court. He doesn't care about Katie, obviously. He's a man that takes lives. So he has no problem testifying against her because he's just taking her freedom. That's why he can't understand why she can't take the plea, but it's because she is not a piece of like he is.
Along that same note, Luis Rivera has no problem testifying against Katie because that's who he is. He's somebody who advances himself by taking from others. If Catherine McBanwa helped take the life of Professor Markel, then what would be stopping her from taking the life of Charles Adelson?
Yeah.
You can't be of high morals in one situation and low morals of the other. You would, in a second, for your own benefit, look, if she did this, helped commit the murder for money, then there would be nothing stopping her to do this to be able to get home. Can't be of high morals and low morals at the same time. She's sitting in custody waiting for that trial because the only thing she has left at this point that this government hasn't ripped away from her is her innocence.
Did you look into purchasing a home here in Tallahassee?
I did, yeah.
And did your brother Charlie convince you not to do that?
I don't remember him convincing me not to. The only reason why I didn't was because I was waiting on the money from Danny from the settlement and he didn't pay it, so I couldn't afford the house.
And your mom didn't want you to buy the house, did she?
That's not true. My parents were looking to buy a house in Tallahassee as well.
Okay.
Didn't purchase the TV. The TV was a gift that my brother paid for, but my mom went and got it and he reimbursed her, so the contract would have been under her name and her number. So when the repair guy was coming, they may have called or texted the number on the account instead of my number.
Okay. And after the murder,
compared to the cost of a new TV would be.
Who paid the repairman?
I did.
The repairman, you're familiar with his statement that you seemed really upset that day. What were you upset about?
I have no idea.
Were you upset that day?
I don't remember oh, yes, I was upset that day. I was upset. I remember Danny wanted to take the kids swimming and I wanted to pick them up earlier in the day.
Okay,
and
so nothing to do with the TV.
I don't think so. I probably wasn't that upset about the TV.
Did you ever use the TV as code for the murder?
No.
Did you ever hear your mom do that?
No.
The TV is the first piece of code that we hear in this case. Charlie Adelson got Wendi a TV as a divorce present, as a cheaper alternative to hiring a hitman. Then the same TV is her alibi for the murder, a service appointment that her mother set up for her from South Florida, or at least there's some indication of that. And then on the wire, when Donna Adelson is speaking in code in that first call, weird thing to do after being approached by an alleged gangster, she says this TV is going to cost about $5,000, referring to the $5,000 on the note that the undercover handed her. It's obvious they're referring to their conspiracy and hearkening back to this TV as code for the murder of Dan Markel. The players in this case are very smart. The crime in this case was given a lot of thought and preparation. We know that the seed was planted for this thing almost a year or more before it came to fruition. They thought of everything: a clever TV-related alibi for Wendi, a frame job for Lacoste, bullet bourbon, and they insulated themselves by hiring this defendant as a middleman between them, the ones that wanted it done, and the shooters. Everyone on the board in this case had some limits to their knowledge. And that was really smart. That made this case much harder to break. The defense has told you that the defendant made the joke about the TV being cheaper than a hitman to people he hardly knew. Who are those people? The only person that testified in this courtroom that they had heard that joke was Wendi Adelson. Lacoste was asked. The lawyer said they'd said it, and you guys have to refer to your notes and your own memories about what the evidence showed. But Lacoste was asked, did he say the joke at the dinner that y'all went to with Wendi and Garcia and Catherine McBanwa? I'm sorry, Wendi and Charlie and Catherine McBanwa. And he says, no. He does not recall that joke being made, and he thinks he would have recalled it had it been made. So there is no evidence in this trial that the defendant told that joke to people he hardly knew. Calls.
She was on some of the calls I listened to.
Did you have any secret meetings with your brother post bump that happened in South Florida?
No.
You were asked about Jeffrey Lacoste and the way that your relationship ended. What is OkCupid?
OkCupid is a dating website.
Were you on that dating website?
I was.
Were you on that dating website at the time that you were dating Mr. Lacoste?
No, I wasn't.
And were you speaking, so I guess if you weren't on it, you weren't speaking to multiple men from the website during the time you were dating Mr. Lacoste. And I'll remind you that you provided your phone in this case and it was cell-brighted, downloaded.
Objection. Argument. Right.
Didn't you just say that you weren't on OkCupid at the time that you were dating Jeffrey Lacoste?
I don't know when we say I officially stopped dating Jeff Lacoste, but there's a chance that, I don't remember in 2014 whether I had gotten the app and started talking to people before we officially broke up.
Okay, so my point is there's a chance that he was right. You were being unfaithful or at least talking to other people. He had a reason to be jealous.
I think he had some serious jealousy issues that may or may not have been founded.
Yeah, I think we got from your testimony that you believe he had serious jealousy issues. My question to you is, did he have a reason to be?
No.
So he was wrong.
He was wrong in June when he accused me of being with multiple people that I wasn't.
How does OkCupid work on your phone? OkCupid can be used on a variety of platforms, including iOS and Android, as well as on your home computers. If you go to the main screen where all your applications are installed on your device and that are grouped, you can tap on the OkCupid icon.
So here's an AI overview of OkCupid's chat. In 2004, their messaging system was a key differentiator from swipe-based apps, and it had open messaging where users could send a message directly to somebody else without having to like them first. They had blind experiments in 2014, and then because the messaging was open, people would get overwhelmed information, so they ended up changing it. And then this was an article that it was changed in 2017 so that it wasn't the typical open message like in 14, which is just reason why I suspect that this is possibly how Wendi and Sigfredo would message each other. Or, it could have even been Wendi and Katie. I don't know. I feel like Georgia brought it up for more reason than just to impeach Wendi over Jeff. I could be wrong, but that's my thought.
And one thing everyone's consistent with, there's no question. When it comes to the defense, we do 100% believe that Charlie Adelson was behind all of this.
Well, what about Wendi?
See, I don't want to commit, but I would say, I'm a person who knows about the standard of proof, and I'd have to say, and I don't want to get, look at my cross-examination of Jeffrey Lacoste, and that will let you know how I stand on that position. Okay, and I think you know what I mean. That actually changed for me from the first to the second trial as I was looking over things again. But that's why my cross was that way. And my position on her is a little different. She's a member of the Florida Bar, so she's an attorney. So let me just leave it at that before I get myself in any trouble. So.
As a member of the...
We have a different ethical standard in terms of...
that in her testimony?
Just from what my understanding is that I found out from the victim impact, which I don't have access to the Markels, okay? From one of the victim impact statements I've discovered, because I read them all late last night, that you recall she testified in the trial, when we crossed her, you haven't let the Markels have any communication with their kids. That she goes, oh no, I just invited them. Remember she said that? I just invited them to the bar mitzvah and, we're working things out. I'm paraphrasing. But come to find out that after the trial, all of that was stopped. She actually had the bar mitzvah and didn't invite them. So that to me tells me that you only did that to be able to testify to that. in preparation as you knew what cross and the questions were coming.
But just to be factual, she uninvited them once Charlie was arrested.
But what
So
is
it
it?
was before the trial.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
when you think about that, the arrest of Charlie had to do was based entirely on that video. So it's not as if that
I agree.
anything changed in terms of what you feel that they were suspecting that he had anything to do with that. All of that was the same. So if she tries to come up with an excuse, oh, it was the arrest, who cares?
Right.
You know what I mean? They didn't say, oh, hey, by the way, I know you haven't arrested Charlie Adelson for 5 years, but do it now. That had nothing to do with the Markels. And I'm telling you, the Markels, to take that position that I will put whatever aside so that I can have a relationship with my grandchildren, that shows you the type of character that they have. And that she is still not allowing them to have any relationship with their paternal grandparents and their cousins. I just found out too, I didn't know that Shelly Markel had kids. So that's where our position comes in, that I hope that one day and somehow that all questions are answered. And it will never bring closure, but that it brings the justice that will at least bring some sort of semblance of peace to the Markels.
How are Katie's kids doing and who are they with?
Well, I can't tell you who they're with. They're with family.
With family.
Okay. And I only say that because you run the name, and that's I can tell you all this now. It was Katie's instruction. Do not bring my family into this media storm because I don't want the ripple effect of, I mean, one of our brother's businesses was sort of affected in the very beginning because of the association. So whereby it would have, oh, you know, I got things on Instagram, no family is there for her, and it literally was Katie saying they do not come into this courtroom because of the cameras. And I mean, that's why my heart breaks for the children that are all affected by this, because they had nothing to do with anything or anybody, and they are the ones that are suffering.
Does she talk to them?
Does she talk to who?
To her children.
She does occasionally. It's getting a little difficult now because they're getting older and in an area where they can understand, you know, what prison is and what jail is. And because when she was arrested, I mean, her son, I think, was 9 and her daughter was barely 4 or 5. And she's been in now for 6 years. So, and I'm hoping if they ever look up anything on the internet, that they know that their mother loves them to death. And, you know, she's always just had nothing but love for her kids. And this is the only way. It's sad that I have to use this and the internet as a way to get messages out there, but it is what it is with this case. And, you know, it's almost like one door closes now and another door just today, same day, first case management. It was very weird though seeing him in person for the first time, even for me, because I feel like I've lived this case for 6 years and it's almost like he became a real person. I've heard the voices from the wiretaps and that voice haunts me in my sleep. So, you know, I'll probably see you guys when the trial comes up because I'll probably come back and I can't not watch. I mean, this is 6 years. So, and I'm just hoping that, I can't say it enough, that there comes some kind of finality and then all questions about this case are answered. That's what I'm praying. So, but we'll see. We'll see. I wish I could give you guys more answers, but most of them are, I don't know. So, and we've been as forthcoming with, you know, everything as it relates to this case, but I cannot trust you enough because I know you are of the absolute belief that we are paid for by the Adelsons. Absolutely not. If you look at Mr. DeCosta and I, the majority of our practice is public defender work. So it's not about the money for us. We're in the red as it relates to this case already, but it was just, you know, I can't even begin. This case will always, it's gonna be a part of me forever. And I'm not, even though you heard, you know, with the public defense office, Katie will do whatever we can to assist, but we're not leaving her. We're still on this and wait until there is a day where there is some really sort of absolute finality, if that can even be achieved, but hopefully at least some questions, if they can be answered, will be answered. Because I have no idea what he's gonna say. So, we'll see.
His attorney says that they have truth on their side.
No comment. Would that be coming from his sister?
I'm sorry?
And would the truth be coming from his sister?
Oh.
But you see, I was with my little snippy comments, and I don't want to do that, so yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I didn't intend on giving a comment, I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm lucky I didn't break down into tears, you know. It was a very emotional thing for us with the verdict the last time. So that's true. And was able to see that Luis Rivera was a liar, and that everything, that his testimony could not be trusted. I don't want this jury not to be able to see. I don't know how much of that came from them looking at him and being able to, you know, just how he reacted to us. But I know that everyone on that last jury, one thing they could agree on was that Luis Rivera was not telling the truth. And the entire case against Katie rests on his word.
Let me give you a real world example. And this goes to our concern about jurors, witnesses wearing masks in trial. You sit down at a poker table, you'll see a lot of poker players wearing glasses. The reason why they're wearing not glasses, sunglasses, and the reason why they're wearing sunglasses is that you can tell a lot by somebody's eyes, the direction that they look, whether they blink. The same thing applies to the southern half of your face, whether you're smiling, whether you're pursing your lips. These are important things to be able to, me as an attorney, cross-examining a witness, I know when I'm hitting a pressure point based on the facial expressions, and there are thousands of micro expressions of the face. So a covering up half the face is a concern, and then there's the other issue that we raised in court, which is it's a lot easier for a jury potentially to make a decision on somebody that's faceless.
I know why. It's obvious to me why the state from day one has been trying to rush into this trial and then at the same time not playing fairly when it comes to Miss McDaniel. Because they say that they're ready for trial, but still are dumping mountains of evidence on us so that our attention can be distracted from preparing for trial. So it's offensive to us that they come in here and we want to get this done and over with, because Catherine McDaniel's life has been on the line for 5 years. Even though they have offered her, since the day she was arrested, immunity in exchange for giving up Charlie Adelson, but that would require her to lie and say that she was involved. She has been incarcerated for 5 years, maintaining her innocence. So this trial isn't, oh, let's just rush and get to it and get it over with. This is the difference between whether she gets to see her kids to touch them again, or whether she's going to spend the rest of her life in jail for a crime that she did not commit.
Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. I just
Did you have any secret meetings with your brother post bump that happened in South Florida?
No.
Mrs. Adelson, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. Let's do a mic check so you can hear everything happening in the room. Mr. Zellman?
Joshua Zellman on behalf of Mrs. Adelson.
Jackie Fulford on behalf of Mrs. Adelson.
Sir Catherine Dugan on behalf of the state.
All right, for everyone who has joined the Zoom this afternoon, there is not to be any recording of the Zoom. Mr. Zellman, you may argue your motion.
Your Honor, before we do that, I believe that the email from your office also indicated that you wanted to address the scope of the sealing. That would be...
We'll get to that at the end, but unless you believe we need to do it right now.
Given the nature of the materials and the basis for the, in part, the basis for the continuance as well as the motion to compel, we would request that it be addressed at the beginning of the hearing.
Very well. Concerning the scope of the sealing, when this matter was first presented to me, when we had the phone conference on April 8th, as it related to matters pertaining to the warrants and any affidavits and any support for those as to the investigation that recently concluded, I am in agreement with you, those matters would be confidential. However, every filing that may even reference those materials, sealing those filings starts to become a question of whether things are exceeding the scope of confidentiality that's allowed by the rule of general administration. Mr. Zellman, why should all of these matters remain sealed without redaction or other means that could be made to otherwise deal with the portions that are confidential?
Well, Judge, Jackie Fulford on behalf of Mrs. Adelson. Our position is that the information that's contained in the items that Your Honor is referring to would need to be referred to also in the arguing of these motions, and we're here in open court, and I'm not sure how we protect the sealing of those documents when we're going to have to argue the very materials that serve the basis of why we're here, asking for a continuance and a motion to compel.
Is anyone actually getting into the warrants or the affidavits themselves with what you plan to argue?
Yes, Judge, and the materials from the investigation.
You have those to actually bring up as a part of your argument today?
Yes, Judge.
Not generally, not just referencing them, but the actual materials from the warrants and the affidavits.
Well, there need to be statements put on the record on behalf of Mrs. Adelson regarding what was claimed to have happened in the investigation that has since proven to be false, that has not been retracted by the state. And in making those arguments is part of the basis for why we need a continuance and why we're asking for the relief in the motion to compel, as well as additional depositions. And
to that end, Ms. Dugan, is the state planning to file any superseding indictment or any additional charges based on the investigation that has now concluded, or at least is alleged to have concluded?
No, sir, not to my knowledge.
With that being said, if the defense is seeking to file any motions related to these matters, they are not related to pending counts. However, you can pursue them as you believe them to be appropriate. As to the warrants and the applications, does the state have a position as to whether they should remain sealed or any documents referencing them should remain sealed without redaction?
No, sir. We would defer to the court. And some of the discovery the defense has moved to compel is sealed, or a lot of it is. And I actually brought a motion to unseal the documents and recordings related to that today so that those can be provided to the defense, but maybe for the limited purpose of discovery, but whatever the court prefers, we don't have a position.
Mr. Zalman, Ms. Fulford, any additional argument?
No, Your Honor.
With there not being additional charges to be filed by the state concerning these matters, the court is going to unseal at this point the filings.
Even if the state isn't going to use the information, we still need to know the extent to which they violated, they intercepted and monitored attorney-client communications and communications that are protected by the fiduciary client privilege. We don't have all of that information yet, and they have not responded. As I indicated in my reply yesterday, the state hasn't responded to those emails requesting that information.
Ms. Dugan,
Yes,
concerning the aspect of the recent investigation, which materials are yet to be provided and why?
Yes, sir. May I also address the 100,000 emails?
Go ahead.
Okay. So those 100,000 emails are redacted privileged communications that the defense recently received that occurred between the Adelsons and prior counsel. This communication was redacted by a taint team. It's never been seen by the prosecution.
The filter team document
Yes,
you're
sir,
referring
thank you,
to.
filter team. It's never been seen by the prosecution. It's obviously privileged. We obviously do not intend to use it in our case, having never seen it. And I also can't imagine a scenario where the defense would be using it in their case. I would feel like all of that information would be hearsay and self-serving hearsay. So the state is objecting to a continuance based on their needing to review all of the privileged communications with prior counsel.
When were the filter team documents provided?
They were provided on April 10th during, one second, I want to double check. During Jason Newland's deposition by this defense team, somehow some question was asked where he referred to the filter team that the court referenced, and this defense team was not aware that the filter team had gone through all of those emails and kept all of the privileged emails from the things that they're requesting here as far as the minimization instructions, all the logs, all of those things. I feel once the order to unseal has been signed, those can't all be disclosed. The only thing that I saw that would be additional that they are asking for is surveillance video, which is surveillance video from the jail, which I've been told has already been disclosed to the defense. They also asked for the financial records that are mentioned in the application. I was told that we subpoenaed Harvey Adelson's Zelle account. I found that those Zelle records and had it sent to the defense this afternoon. So once those items are unsealed and they can be disclosed to the defense, that should be all of the discovery that pertains to the wire.
Please provide the order as the defense.
Extortion defense.
She says that she's sorry this has been our life for so many years. It has been torture, but your lawyer didn't want you to know what happened. I think if you did, our relationship and your with Charlie would have been much different. I hope he knew what he was doing. Your testimony was crucial. Let's see what a jury does to him and to the rest of us. You know I'm next, but that won't happen. I'll take care of that.
What date is that? Or was that sent? What date was that sent?
November 1st of 23.
Okay, and then what day did Charlie Adelson testify in his defense in that case?
November 2nd.
All right, and in this conversation between Donna Adelson and Wendi Adelson, did Donna Adelson agree that Charlie Adelson's testimony about being extorted was the truth, that he was telling the truth?
She did, yes.
Okay, can we see that exchange?
Yes.
Now, right before this exchange, did Wendi Adelson send a prayer hands emoji?
Yes.
Okay, and then what was Donna Adelson's response to that?
That we shouldn't have to pray. He's telling the truth, protected his little sister for years, differs through this, and now what? Prayer hands.
And then does she clarify that she meant suffers, not differs?
Yes.
Okay, so what date was this text sent on?
Again, November 6th of 2023.
So this would have been about 4 days after Charlie Adelson's testimony.
Correct.
But before a verdict was rendered in the case.
That's correct.
It says that he's telling the truth, protected his little sister for years. Was Robert Adelson a witness in Charlie Adelson's trial? Was he called by either the state or the defense?
He was not.
Okay. So the only person that Wendi Adelson was a little sister of who testified in Charlie Adelson's trial was Charlie Adelson then.
That's correct.
And here she's saying he's telling the truth. Is that right? Okay, thank you. Was that the looking at this WhatsApp thread between Charlie Adelson and Donna Adelson, were some messages seen in 2023 that law enforcement did not previously have?
Correct.
Okay. If you could turn our attention to the first one from July of 2016. Okay. Do you mind going to the next? Thank you. All right, so they're talking about some good news.
Yes.
Okay, what's next? All right, so what does Charlie Adelson say here?
He says that the information he got, no, it's in the paper from yesterday, and I spoke to Marcus this morning. He said it's not official yet, but it's looking that way after he spoke to Garcia attorney.
Okay, and when was that message sent?
July 21st of 2016.
Okay, was David Marcus, spelled with a K, was that Charlie Adelson's attorney at the time?
Yes.
So according to this text, Charlie Adelson's attorney was talking to Garcia's attorney, and he's letting his mother, Donna Adelson, know that in this message?
Yes.
Who did Marcus run into when he met with Garcia's lawyer?
Katie.
I believe 73A and 73 have been admitted at this point. They're in evidence. The objections are ruled.
What happened when Garcia's lawyer, when Charlie Adelson's lawyer met with Garcia's lawyer? Who did they run into?
Miss Magbanua.
Okay. Now, how do we know that Kaddie is Magbanua?
That's how he had her listed in his contacts within his phone, Charlie Adelson's.
Okay. So throughout their relationship, Catherine McBanwell's phone number and all these messages are all to Kaddie in his phone. That's how he spelled Katie.
Correct.
Okay. And then how does Donna Adelson respond to this?
To the small world comment, she replies that it is, and then he goes on to discuss the meeting.
So does he say?
You may continue your examination, Ms. Dugan.
Okay, so I was asking you about this text that you received from Wendi Adelson. Can you tell me about this text?
Sure. She texted me that she was going to Gainesville for the weekend, and this was 2014. So I last lived in Gainesville about 3 years prior to that. I mentioned that she wanted that. I mentioned the name of Jeff. I asked who was Jeff. The response was my boyfriend. I responded I didn't know, and she said you wouldn't. I didn't hear it from the parents. She says they don't know. And so it just struck me as, and then she sent me some pictures of Jeff with her and the boys. It struck me as unique because she'd never shared the name or photograph of a boyfriend before.
Okay, so
Before you continue, Ms. Dugan, members of the jury, as to the last question and response, you are not to consider the hearsay statement for the truth of the matter asserted. You may continue.
Okay. So it was unusual for her to talk to you about boyfriends at all.
Yes.
But you also felt it was unusual that she's telling you about this boyfriend when even your parents don't know about him yet.
Right.
And she was closer to her parents at the time than you?
Correct.
Okay. What date was that text message sent?
The very end of June, like 26 or 28 of 14, but that last weekend.
Okay, so it was prior to 4th of July weekend?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember where in those photographs Wendi is with her sons and Jeff?
Like Wakulla Springs, something like that.
Okay.
And they were in front of a board that said that.
And did you let her know you wouldn't mention him to her parents or to your parents?
Yes.
Did that strike you as so unusual that after Dan Markel was murdered, you felt, I guess, compelled to tell police, like, hey, I heard she has this boyfriend she hasn't told anybody about named Jeff?
Yes, I did. The FBI came to my house and I spoke to them once, and either it didn't come up or, it's a bit nerve-wracking talking to the FBI, and that they didn't ask any questions about that. And then, I guess over the ensuing week, I'd heard about like this Prius and this unsolved murder. And I remembered, it struck me as odd that I was sent these photographs of a boyfriend and not to tell the parents about him. And so that's when I wanted to have a clean conscience. So I reached out to the FBI and I said, I don't know if this matters, but I figured I would, tell you about this. And they came back for a second interview and looked at the pictures.
Okay. When is your father, Harvey Adelson's birthday?
July 5.
Okay, so on July 5th of 2014, how old would he have turned that year?
70.
Okay, and this is about 2 to 3 weeks before Dan Markel was killed?
Yes.
Did your family do anything to celebrate his birthday that year?
Yes, we had a party at their condo.
Okay, was there a gift from the family or from any of you to him?
No. I remember an email, and my dad is not someone who wants gifts or a big deal made about him, and so the email was something like, your dad doesn't want gifts; he just wants all of his kids to be with him on his birthday.
And was that from Donna Adelson?
Yes.
So she's basically just letting know you and your kids coming is going to be his gift.
Correct.
And everybody, all the kids and grandkids being
Correct.
there. Okay. Did the family ever discuss going on a cruise?
No, not with me.
When a birthday gift is given for somebody in the family, does Donna Adelson typically say, we're going to get him this, everybody owes this much, everybody's going to pay a third, or whatever it is?
Yeah, if there was like a big gift we're getting, or they said, we're getting this for someone, and you can be part of it, that was not uncommon.
Okay, so tell us at the party, about the party. You said it was at the Continuum?
Yes, at their apartment.
Okay, so is that like a condo building in Miami?
Yeah, on Miami Beach.
Okay, on Miami Beach, like South Beach?
Yeah.
Okay. And is it a secure building?
It's very secure. It was, we were staying at a hotel down the street, and there was armed guards, and it was a Apparently there's a lot of celebrities that live there. It was a very high, very secure building.
Okay. And these celebrities that live there, were they people that you knew of? I mean, you knew who they were?
Sure, yeah, I mean, A-Rod.
Did these people have kind of guards of their own too in the building?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. So the guards that you saw were the guards in the front?
Yes.
All right. Had your parents, how recently had they moved to the Continuum?
I got the idea, it was certainly less than a year. Like, I don't remember exactly, but it seemed like they said they were going to try living down in South Beach to see if they liked it for their retirement. And so it had to be sometime, before, because they were pretty well moved in there. But I don't remember the exact time, but if I'm guessing, like maybe 6 months before or something like that.
Okay, so by the weekend of the party, July 5th, are they like fully moved into their condo there?
Yes.
Okay, and are they living there full time, from what you know?
It seemed like that, but I couldn't. I know they still own the house in Coral Springs, so I don't know if they were just there on the weekends, but I couldn't say.
So on Friday, there was a hearing that Court TV was not permitted to record. And we understand that Adelson appeared remotely as her attorneys asked the judge to grant that permission to re-depose several witnesses in the case. And this includes Donna's estranged son, Robert. That's right, there's another sibling besides Charlie and Wendi, Robert. Now, we learned that the newly discovered discovery that was disclosed by prosecutors involves wiretaps of conversations between a jailhouse informant and Donna's husband, Harvey. Now, we haven't heard much about Harvey since Donna's arrest last year.
You're making a mistake. It's another mistake. It's two mistakes. Can you take it off, please, Donna? I don't want to push you. Please.
Just a minute.
Please.
It's good. Listen to me.
Yeah. I'll call.
Yeah, think it over.
I will.
Donna's defense team also alleges that the state of Florida made some false allegations in an affidavit that was presented to a judge, alleging that there was a plot to harm Robert Adelson, Catherine McBanawa, remember her, and the mother of a jailhouse snitch. So this is all starting to sound like a Lifetime movie, isn't it? But no, this is real life. So is the case shifting in any way to these other family members? Let's talk about it. Still with me, attorney Tommy Pope, and want to welcome in Court TV digital content producer Lauren Silver, who's been tracking this case for us from the beginning. She reads all the motions and watches all the hearings. Lauren, good morning. All right, can I start with you, please? Tell us about these new developments. What were the big takeaways, you think, with what we weren't able to film on Friday?
Oh, what tangled webs we weave, this family.
Yes.
I've never seen anything quite like it. And behind the scenes, we had talked about whether or not Wendi Adelson would be dragged into this next. Now it's Harvey. We hadn't really talked about Harvey. He hadn't been forefront. And now we're hearing that there are these new wiretaps that the defense is just getting to listen to. They're talking about hundreds of calls. And more than that, the defense is alleging that the state recorded conversations between Harvey and a jailhouse informant. They're alleging that the state is making up conversations because apparently the state is alleging that Donna's new attorneys that were entered after there was a prior conflict of counsel have been helping her to communicate with Harvey using their own cell phones and watches. And it is during one of those conversations, allegedly, that there was a discussion about a potential plot to harm their eldest son, Robert, who is estranged from the family.
Oh, my. Lauren, you weren't kidding. This is quite a web here. Tommy Pope, so let me go to you next, please. So the defense team wants to depose two investigators that were involved in the wiretaps, as well as Robert Adelson. Now, specific to Robert, they want to know about how some new accusations could impact his testimony against his mom. Judge Everett agreed that if the defense has some new questions not previously asked or some new information, the witnesses can be deposed on that. Otherwise, he'll take the issue under consideration. We've heard Donna before on jailhouse calls with her son Charlie as she talks about going to Vietnam. I have a clip for you here, Tommy. Let's take a listen together.
The other thing I don't understand, my daughter could help me with it. We've been looking it up over and over.
could things change if there's extradition from Vietnam? Because we've looked at all the places. I mean, I could go to Korea and China, but there's no extradition. But we're looking for places where there's no extradition.
Ooh, okay. So we remember that. Tommy, going back to Robert here, the testimony he could give against his mom, what legal issues do you see potentially coming up there for him, if any?
You know, I was trying to think what incentive he would have, you know, and that he's already convicted. And I don't know, you know, different states, different laws, you know, but here in South Carolina, pretty much once you're there, with few exceptions, there's not any early parole for, you know, assistance. But, you know, in the federal system there is, and South Carolina started doing some of that, but, you know, unless he's looking out for, you know, taking care of himself and trying to figure if he can offer up something. But this thing, I never would have thought after the first trial it would have gone any further, you know, because it just seemed too collateral. But, you know, whether you want to call it the web or the rabbit hole, the more we see, the more this crowd, I mean, Mom talks about the going non-extradition. Apparently she's learned enough about the law to know where she wanted to end up. But again, this thing spreads broader and broader and broader over what I perceived initially to be, you know, kind of a straightforward family murder case. I hate to make it that mundane, but in my career, I guess that's what it is.
Right. No, you're right, Tommy. I mean, it took a while for us to see it, right? We remember it was the gangbangers on trial first. We kept hearing about the Adelsons, and now, boy, the tables have turned, haven't they? Lauren, speaking of the tables turning, okay, we know that the attorneys for Mama Donna filed that motion to ask the judge to recuse himself, which was denied. Any more about that? We really didn't hear why. Anything you could glean from Friday?
So they didn't mention it in the hearing on Friday, but in the motion. So what's interesting about this motion is I'm getting this information from, it was pulled from the docket. So it's no longer public. I don't know why it was up for the 5 minutes that I grabbed it, but I did. In that document, it does reference that they had asked the judge to recuse himself because of 3 ex parte communications and or meetings with the prosecution. It doesn't say what happened in those meetings. It does also reference a number of affidavits given to the judge that contained lies, arguably about the alleged plot to hurt Rob Adelson, Catherine McBanoa, and the jailhouse informant's mother. So I don't know if those affidavits were part of those meetings. It's not clear, but it is saying they are alleging that there were multiple ex parte communications and meetings between the prosecution and the judge, but the judge, again, refused to recuse himself.
Lauren, thank you for that. You're so awesome grabbing that motion before it was yanked down. You are the best. So let's talk a little more, Tommy, about these depositions that may be yet to come. I'm curious, if you're Harvey Adelson, how concerned should you be about saying something that could potentially be used against you and potentially lay the groundwork for charging?
You know, that was always the trickiest part, I thought, of constitutional law in the courtroom of, you know, when someone could plead the fifth, when they couldn't. You know, we see it on TV all the time, and I'm just not going to talk. But, you know, if you've got an immunity, there can be opportunities where you have to testify. And so, again, back to our tangled web, it's going to be interesting from a legal standpoint. You know, I was thinking about this whole pushback by the defense, and I don't know these attorneys as far as their strategies or the way they approach cases, but it was a little concerning what I heard you say on the lead-in too. If they're allowing access that maybe is supposed to be limited through their phones or their smartwatches or whatever the case may be, they may be protested even more on those issues to try to cover the fact that they probably shouldn't have been doing what they were doing. Again, in that state, it may be perfectly fine, but if there's some restrictions there and they're trying to circumvent them, then they could have their own problems. And I never wanted to ask the judge to recuse himself unless I was pretty sure he was going to be gone, because he's going to remember that. And so I think they turned up the heat for themselves, and so they probably have no choice but to keep on punching.
That's a really great point, Tommy. Yeah, that's a sticky situation to be in if you've made that motion to ask his or her honor to recuse themselves and they don't do it. It's like you got to know that you're right before you take on that legal battle, right? So Judge Everett, he is staying on this case. Now, for tipping the scales of justice, Mama Donna Adelson and her lawyers are asking for a change of venue because of her oldest son's deposition and the statements he made. And we talked Tuesday about that depo here on Opening Statements. Rob Adelson, he's actually a doctor, Dr. Rob Adelson, I should say, made comments that could be considered damaging, very damaging to his mother's case. And now his mom's attorneys say they have no ability to unring the bell. Like when asked if his mother was sharp or gullible, Rob answered that Donna is not someone who's gullible or who could pull the wool over their eyes very easily. Rob has been estranged from the rest of the family since the murder of Dan Markel. We don't even have a photo of him, you guys, because he's not been talked about. Many people didn't even know there was another sibling. Well, Donna's trial is set to begin in June. And so we're wondering, will the information from Rob's deposition about his opinion of his mother not being gullible be enough to get a change of venue? Or is the defense reaching here? Well,
I don't know which one, but my gut is telling me that it's Lewis. Because
the important thing to note there is that we're not getting the full story. Luis Rivera is not giving the full story. Luis Rivera has testified and messed up and given the truth and said, well, the third trip, oh, that was with King Anthony. So he's giving the story that the government wants from him, not the full truth. We don't have the full story, but in my opinion, do I trust that Luis Rivera and Sigfredo Garcia were some of the members involved? Yes. What we know beyond a shadow of a doubt is that Catherine McManus was not involved in that. That evidence is there. The government wants the jury to not look at it, wants the media to not look at it. They don't even want to look at it themselves because it goes against their theory.
They said relocation had no impact on Charlie Adelson, and that they proved Wendi's innocence in their questioning of her. Why are they working so hard to convince you Wendi is innocent? Does it matter? Y'all aren't being asked to decide anything about Wendi Adelson. There's nothing on that verdict form about Wendi Adelson. Did she corroborate the defense theory in this case? Wendi Adelson testified she didn't know anything about this supposed extortion of her brother, even though she moved there the day this happened. She didn't know in 14, she didn't know in 15, and she didn't know until it was announced in opening statements in this courtroom. I asked her about it, and she said, quote, well, I learned that someone made that argument. I don't know whether it's true or not. I don't know whether it's true or not. Even his own sister doesn't believe this load he's trying to sell y'all.
Stugan, did Sergeant Corbett do any calculation or in some other way develop this information that can be demonstrated as reliable?
Yes, sir. So on this slide, we have actual versus optimal travel of Wendi Adelson on the day of the crime. The actual travel is based on the events in her call detail records, where it shows cell towers that her phone is communicating with as she leaves her house and goes on her way that day from by the crime scene to ABC liquor store and up to lunch. That's based on call detail records. And also other evidence like an ABC receipt that she had that day. For the red dotted line, that's the summary of the shortest route. So we're saying this is the actual route versus the shortest route she could have taken from point A to point B, her home to where another liquor store is and the restaurant. What he uses to show travel time or miles is a company called, or a mapping company called Esri, which is, and if you need to hear more about it from Sergeant Corbett, it'll be here in just a second. But basically that is a software that Florida Department of Transportation uses for their mapping and mileage calculations. He uses this very regularly in all of his mapping and travel calculations and all of his presentations. And he knows it's reliable because several times he's tested it himself. He looks at where the map says the travel time should be in the miles, and he does the drive himself. So he's been able to personally test this several times, and it's been accurate. And what we have in this slide is one is call records. The other is the summary of the shortest route. And it's literally just saying, hey, this is point A, this is point B, and this is the mileage according to Esri, and this is the minutes it should take. And it's twice as long as the actual, or twice as short as the actual route.
All right. The sergeant also will be able to testify as to his knowledge of this program, its use, and the fact that he is qualified to use this program.
Yes, sir. And I can ask him those questions today if you'd like me to, but he regularly uses this program and has knowledge of it, is qualified to talk about it, and has had personal knowledge of testing its accuracy before.
All right. Well,
12:30, the hitmen now headed back south, turned their phones on. They had turned them off for the homicide. They turn them back on. The first phone call that either one of them makes is Sigfredo Garcia to Catherine Magbanoa. They want their money. Where is Magbanoa getting the money? From Charlie. 12:45, so while the killers are calling Magbanoa and heading south, Wendi goes out of her way to visit the crime scene, encounters a roadblock and crime scene tape. Per the officer at the roadblock, she would have been able to clearly see the police activity at her former residence. The residence where her children currently lived half the time and where they woke up that morning. Yet she abruptly turns around and leaves. She does not make contact with the officer to ask what's going on. She does not call the police to inquire. She does not call Dan Markel to say, are you okay? There's a bunch of cops at the house. She does not call the daycare to make sure her children arrive that morning and are okay. Instead, she proceeds to the ABC Liquors, purchases her bullet bourbon at 12:49. She's later approached by law enforcement at lunch and gives a law enforcement interview in which she says, my parents have more reason to dislike Danny than almost anyone else. This echoes Rob Adelson's testimony that his mother hated Dan Markel at the time of his murder. But don't let the way that they thought they would get away with this case be the way they get away with this case. But don't let the way the defendant thought he would get away with this be the reason he gets away with it. Don't let the way she thought she was going to get away with this be the way she gets away with it.
The state isn't going to decide to arrest me. Oh my God, I can't believe this. I believe that the truth has a way of coming out.
Okay, so we think Danny's not waking up. Is that?
There is enough circumstantial evidence there to infer that Wendi took affirmative steps to help further the conspiracy.